Welcome to Tech 5. We cover the biggest technology trends impacting our lives. My name is Kelley Boss. Now, when you hear about success stories, most of the time it starts with access to education. And so when you look at the numbers, for example, in Kenya, according to UNICEF, over 17 million children are still recovering from up to 9 months of lost learning due to COVID-19, which is worrying to think about. And to help meet the teacher-student ratio in Kenya, e-learning has become a big part of our education equation. Now, I met this gentleman called Ndungu, who is well known to techies, but on this particular day, he introduced himself as the founder of Kytabu, Kytabu with a K. And my first question to him was, what exactly is Kytabu?
Kytabu is education software, full stop. And what Kytabu does is provide digital solutions for learning for educators, students, and schools. That's all. So we don't do anything specific in like an app or digital content or platforms. We do whatever works for the school at the time. And the reason why we wanted to do that was because we recognize that every school, every community, every industry, every space has its own specific set of needs. And our job is to go look at those needs and find a way to address those needs using the technology that we have. We recognize technology is not the silver bullet in education. Teachers, parents, students, and schools are. But technology can facilitate an easier learning environment in some way. It could be digital content for the students, for the teacher, for the school, or it could be something as simple as a platform or even just an SMS system that can enable people to access content or things that they need for learning. So that's what Kytabu does, software for education.
I feel excited going home, but at the same time, I am a candidate. And with the minimal time we have, it's really not a good thing because we have 4 months to KCPE.
At the peak of the pandemic, nearly 190 schools were forced to close, impacting over 90% of enrolled learners. Technology played a big part in the recovery process and is now playing class assistant in schools.
Hello friends! In this lesson, we are going to explore whole numbers. And in particular, we are going to discuss the place value of whole numbers. Now, I want you to have your pens and papers ready because we will need them as we progress.
I think the pandemic was the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to showing people the power of technology. There's 3 things I would like to probably highlight that for us in education really showed promise. The first one was the instantaneous nature in which these technology solutions took the place of classrooms. In an instant, whether it's Google Classroom or Google Education, or it was Zoom, or it was Microsoft Teams, or whatever you chose, the moment you decided you want to do it in class, it was available for you. It's instant. The second one was convenience. It was everywhere at once. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. The power of technology is its ability to be able to be used by everyone right now, at once. And in the back end, all you need for technology, people like myself, is just more space, more hosting capacity, more processing power. But that is nothing compared to what it takes if you're to try and implement it on the ground. And the third one was the affordability. Instantly, everybody had 40 minutes worth of Zoom, and in some cases, unlimited time on Zoom or Google or whatever to be able to engage with their teachers, their parents, their students. And it was non-discriminatory. As long as you had an internet connection and any basic device that was a smart device, you could do it on your phone or on your devices. And so what did that tell the education community? It said that a lot of the things that governments have been struggling with, equity being one of them, can be solved very quickly by technology. And let me explain how, because a lot of people are going to be like, no, that's not possible. Let me explain how that works. If you have, let's imagine Kenya had 100 students, only 100 students. And of the 100 students, 30 have access, even 20 have access to technology. Yeah. And it costs 1,000 shillings per child for those 100 students to learn. Yeah. If 20 have access to technology, and that reduces the cost from 1,000 to 100, you now have 20 times 1,000, which essentially is 200,000, I think it is, yes, and or 20,000. And you take that 20,000, but because the children are using less money, you take your savings from the 20,000 because now it's 2,000. That what is left, the 180,000 left, you can redistribute among the other children. And that was what education technology noticed. If we can serve just 20% of the children in a country, 50% of the teachers in a country, Kenya can directly save more than 2.7 billion shillings for education content. 2.7 billion. just by that small percentage. If you push it for teachers specifically to the 80, 90, 100% mark, you're going to be saving almost 4 billion shillings worth of education content. Why? Because all of this, you digitize one book, all the teachers can be able to access it on their devices. And the moment they're able to access it in this way and you teach them a new way of educating children, then this becomes a new norm. And then you address the children who have access to these devices and provide them these devices. You don't have to do it for everyone. Once you address these kids, the resources that would normally have gone to them are redistributed to the other children. And slowly the 20% who have access to technology become 30%. Then they become 40%. Then they become 50%. And the government, as that progression goes, reduces the capital they're spending. So in my mind, education technology really showed how if you really want to save money in education, you can through tech. So just do it.
While the standards of education vary because of CBC, education inequality continues to grow. For example, according to UNICEF, over 17 million children are still recovering for up to 9 months lost learning due to COVID-19. According to another report by Statista, in 2019, 10.1 million children attended primary school in Kenya. However, only 3.2 million children enrolled in secondary school that year, and only 509,000 students attended college that same year.
I think the first thing is recognizing that equity is never going to happen. And it's not being pessimistic, it's being realistic. And understanding that equity is we call it a vanity metric. Don't try and shoot for everyone. That would be a fail. If you try to shoot for everyone before you decide whether your product is going to work or not, nothing will start. 15, 17 years ago when M-Pesa started, remember at the time those small Kabambe phones were 45,000 shillings? Do you remember that? How many Kenyans had that? Now, if Michael Joseph was CEO of Safaricom, then looked at the product and thought, this is never going to work, then Safaricom would not have created the craze that is M-Pesa now. But now Kabambe is 2Gs, 1,500, 2,400. This is the way the world works. Things change in price. So build for those who can use, who at some point will be niche, but recognize that the world is different. Laptops used to be 200, 350,000 shillings. When I was in my early 20s, when I was a teenager. I remember when I was really young, my father bought one. My father's company bought one for him. A PS1, IBM, I believe it was, 475,000 shillings. And the screen was blue and white only. DOS, that's what we were working on. That's where I got into computers very early in the 90s. And it was so special, my dad put it in a room and locked the room, and then my brother came to sleep in my room. That's how special the computer was. Yeah. Now they're everywhere. They're everywhere in that 25, 30 years. And so when it comes to equity, my suggestion always is focus on those who can access, because in some point, what is niche will become ubiquitous. So build for that in mind and provide for those who can access something simple, affordable, and relevant. And then you'll see it scale and grow and impact more and more as you go. And also you will learn as you go. There's nothing that ever started with mass uptake. Whether it is cars or medicine, COVID, we've seen how the COVID vaccine went. It took time to put this thing out into the world, and there are those who got it first and there are those who got it after. So equity is, I believe, is a vanity metric, but for those that are served well, let them be served so well that the resources required to give them the education they need are reduced, slashed by 70, 80, 90%, and those resources can then be reallocated to those who do not have. Let's talk about teacher-children ratio. You can't fix that. It's a fact. We have one of the youngest continents we have the youngest continents in the world, and we're one of the youngest countries in the world in terms of how many people are under the age of 15, 18, 30, compared to the rest of our population. That's unchangeable. Number two, and this is also very important, the future is going to rely on a workforce coming from this continent. That's a fact. Europe is getting older, Asia is getting older, the US is getting older. We are the only ones getting younger. That's a fact. And then the third part, and I like this part very, very much. No one has a control on what the future holds. Industrialized nations in the time of industrialization had control over where you put that factory, for example, right? And communication institutions and infrastructure was built around those things. This is why Europe and the US did what they did. But now we're in an information age where the most, for example, followed TikTok content creator, Mali, He's an African.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can be able to twist around to force Kabi to not be the most popular person. The content that is being created on YouTube by Africans for Africans is doing phenomenally well. The things that are happening in technology have meant that those boundaries, that gentrification that happened, has ended. What am I saying? Technology has opened up opportunities for everybody, but you need to know how to use them. And all this information is available. So to your question, the ratio of teachers to children is always going to be immense. But that doesn't mean that the impact teachers have on children has to be negative. Train our teachers in a fashion where they stop being the sole controllers of content and become the facilitators of the learning experience. And by being facilitators, you can stand in front of a community of 30,000 people and tell them to do things. We see that all the time. But when you are the only holder of this content, then it puts pressure on you and it puts pressure on your users. So let's do that. And that's what training teachers does. It allows them to walk into a classroom and facilitate the process of learning, but empower the children to learn new content, which they're going to use as they get older. As an employer myself, and having worked in the tech space for 15 years, true illiteracy is not the inability to understand numeracy and literacy or to read and write. That's one level of illiteracy. But true career illiteracy is the inability to switch from one career to another, the ability to unlearn what you learned in one career and relearn something new in another career. And let me give you a practical example. I'm a millennial. I was born before 1980. Those who've come after me, they're called Gen Z. Gen Z will change their career vertical. Doesn't mean you're going to move from being a doctor to something in the medical field. No, complete transfer from, for example, medicine to engineering, at least 3 times in their career. That's what your generation is facing. Those who come after them, it's been averaged 9 times in their career. And they're going to start working earlier. We started working in our mid-20s to late 20s, sometime even our early 30s. These young people, because of the state of the world as you have seen, will start working in their early 20s to latest mid-20s. And their careers progress really fast because as their career progresses, they're being replaced by machines. So competency-based curriculum is teaching people the competency, the understanding, the practical knowledge of learning, whereas previously 844 was teaching people the theory of the learning. And so this is why it's important to target teachers. You can't teach children what their teachers don't know. There's a very popular saying that says you can't go beyond what you see. Teachers themselves are the ones who are going to be teaching CBC. They then need to understand how to unlearn what they learned at 844 and relearn something new when they go to schools. The Deputy President was talking about putting 160,000 new teachers into the market. If these teachers have been brought up and taught an 844 system, and then you take them to a new system and tell them teach this system without helping them unlearn and relearn, then even what you're going to be doing in class is a farce. Yeah? So that's why we are focusing on teachers, saying e-learning simplified for young adults like teachers would immensely impact the children. And let me just give you numbers. A child with a mobile device will probably learn 2 or 3 times as much as a child without. That's fine. A teacher with a mobile device will probably teach the child 16 times better than a teacher without. 16. Those are exponential differences in the opportunities teachers using technology provide for education systems. So that's why we're very focused at Kytabu and generally as an education technology community to focus on the tool that allows teachers to teach better more than the tool that enables children to learn faster.
Teachers are very hungry for education and recognize that the world has changed. So if any tool can help them track progression according to Tonee, they are more than willing to welcome an assistant.
This came from the teachers. The first thing, teachers, from my experience, and we've had great conversations for the last decade with them, teachers want to be treated like humans. They want to be treated well. They want to be treasured. They want to be focused on. They want to be like, who doesn't? Which human doesn't love that? Yeah. You want to see somebody has paid attention to your needs. And one of the things we did was when we were doing our design, because a lot of the time people find the solution before they have understood the problem. We went and really understood the problem. I have been in so many classes in so many schools I have relearned biology, relearned chemistry in different schools around the country because we really wanted to understand what the challenge was. And my team and I were like, let's sit down with teachers and design this product. And so we did it with them and then took it and professionalized it and made it do what works for them. So the first thing we recognized was understand the problem. Then don't even build a solution, understand the problem and understand why the problem exists. So it's not that the problem usually is a symptom of the actual problem. The big problem teachers are facing is they have, as you mentioned, a very high student-to-teacher ratio. Number one. Number two, things are changing under the teacher's feet. And number three, resources are limited. But here's a secret. That's everywhere in the world, in every situation. So how do you solve that problem? Well, if the resources are fewer, let's build something that needs less resources. If the students are too many for the teacher, let's give the student roles in classrooms that support teachers' work. So delegate, off-board, provide, give them power, empower the children to help you in class. And if you don't have the right resources or things are changing under you and you don't know how to adjust, then access these things easier, faster, cheaper. Voila. Situation has been set up for teachers to start succeeding. So the teachers recognize this. They're like, wait, so instead of sitting down and taking a rubric assessment book and then putting it in the cupboard, I can do this on a mobile app and then there's a dashboard somewhere. And that dashboard has all the student data, and a parent can see it, a head teacher can see it, and even our local government can see it, and even the national government can see it. And you're going to host all of that for us? Okay, I'm signing up. Where do I sign? That's how we build real solutions. By understanding, by having a very strong relationship with the problem, not having an allegiance to the solution. Let me give you an example of something we built called Hodari. Hodari is a teacher's application. Currently, we're in post-development, so we're building the beta version for more teachers. Yeah. But we tested with 30 teachers. We gave them a product that takes the CBC assessment rubric. It's a textbook teachers are given to mark on for children. And we digitized that whole process. It's an app they download, and they go into their classrooms, and they do the normal thing that they do on a digital tool. We started with 30 teachers. When we were done, after 21 days, we had almost 300. And they were passing it around, sharing, because you don't have it on the Play Store. It's a test version. 4 things we realized changed the way we perceive the teachers, because we had misconceptions. Number one, teachers are very hungry for technology to teach and to help them with the administration, number one. Number two, teachers recognize that the world has changed. They are almost always on their phones just like we are, whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is they're doing, they're on those devices. And it's not just in Nairobi, in Mararal, in Wajir, all these places, because that's how they communicate with their family and friends. The third thing is teachers recognize the power of good information, data. They can be able to see the progression of a child over time, but they don't want to do the math because it's difficult to be able to understand the child's progression. If someone else or something else can help me be able to see, oh, Kelley's progression is improving or his progression is decreasing, it allows me to intervene on time. And the fourth thing, and I think the most important thing, is teachers want something that assists them. They get that. They want an assistant for them because they're swamped. So by providing the solution to teachers and having the 300 of them use it for a month, we recognized that this is what they were asking for. And they came back to us and said, make changes. And so now we're making changes in Hodari, and we're looking forward to launching it towards the end of November, early December. But the goal is, and this is something I want to speak to, not just Kenyans, but Kenyan parents. You're building your child for a future I cannot tell you about. 10 years ago, when we started the NILAB and my good friend Eric Hessman started the iHub, we sat together and laughed thinking, we are wasting so much money with these big spaces for technology. We didn't know that a few years later it would be called Silicon Savannah, and more than 4,000 startups would have come out of that community. And more than a quarter of them have raised capital from different people around the world. You can never foretell these things. The 10 largest companies in the world, right now, the 10 largest companies, were not there 20 years ago, literally didn't exist 20 years ago, and they're all in technology. So how much more will the world we're walking into be a mystery to all of us? Doesn't it make sense for you to prepare your child to be able to adapt instead of trying to train them to stick with what was? No.
Tonee is one of the most successful techies in Africa. His message to techpreneurs and entrepreneurs is, you can't be the source of your own answer.
In life, there are 2 kinds of people. And you argue with me what you like, but there are 2 kinds of people. There are problem solvers and there are solution seekers. Here's the difference. Problem solvers identify the problem and then work to solve it. Solution seekers empower themselves by understanding the variance of solutions the world has to offer. And then when they find challenges or problems, they don't have to be the sole provider of the solution. They pull in whatever is available for them to solve the problem. Problem seekers are challenges. Because problem solvers are challenges, because problem solvers tend to focus on themselves as the source of an answer. I am a problem solver. Give me the problem, I will solve it. Solution seekers are different and better, because solution seekers empower themselves with the information around them to solve problems. You stop being the one that provides everything. You become a conduit. To techies and everyone in general, do yourself a favor and empower yourself to solve problems. Don't be the one who solves the problem. Be the one that connects solutions to the problems. And if you are a good techie, and understand that this is how everyone who has succeeded has lived. If you are a techie and you're trying to build a business, or if you are a politician trying to solve problems in your community or your country or your county, or if you're a parent who has a child who's struggling, or you are a headmaster in a school and you're trying to make it grow, or even just an entrepreneur trying to build a business. If the problem comes to you and you're the one to solve it, you're the bottleneck, you're the issue. But if the problem comes to you and you're able to pull in solutions because you have exposed yourself to people, answers, things, communities, learning lessons, and all of that, to be able to provide a gateway for this solution to be solved, you will succeed immensely, because it's never only you. You're not the only resource. As a parent with a child who's struggling in learning, when you go online or you talk to other parents or you get involved in communities for children who are struggling, you will find answers that are outside of you. That's the win. And the same thing applies to politicians. If you're trying to solve a drought issue and you're trying to think about how to do it by yourself, you cannot be the repository of all knowledge. Find other droughts around the world that have been solved. See what people are doing. Understand different types of agroforestry. Understand different sources of water, and bring that solution to the room. And I think this is one of the biggest things I will tell a techpreneur, an entrepreneur, or a person who has a vision for themselves. You cannot be the source of your answer. Einstein said it once. You cannot create a solution for a problem in the mind that created the problem in the first place. You have to go outside of yourself. So I dare them to go outside of themselves, whether it's podcasts or partnerships or join hubs or go for accelerator programs. I still love doing those things and learning myself, even 15 years into the game. I still learn and sit under people younger than me who are doing things that are different and exciting, to be able to learn from them, because I know I have something to give, but I have also something to learn. I hope that helps.
All right, that was it for Tech File. Keep watching KTN News. And over the weekend, I attended the Digger Motor Show, and these are the exclusive videos from the show, which was quite something.